in
2000 what?
2019.
Oh, gotcha.
So although I started in 1990, you can do the math there. I'm fairly fresh as a real estate agent. And fresh is a different word for
35
newer.
years.
Yeah, we're newer. But my expertise honestly comes off as a pricing expert when I come to addressing real estate. One of our biggest functions here is to be the expert for our clients and make sure that our expertise, you know, gets them what they want and gets them to sell their house or buy their house fairly. And that's why I got into this. Honestly, I probably assisted in 3 or 4 transactions a year through friends and referrals, just giving opinions. Saw a few of them not in the best transactions. And so I'm doing this to service my clients, so I make sure that they are taken care of. I don't want anybody to go through a bad transaction. So, we're going to start with this because this class is how to price your listing. I'm an appraiser, so I think about this a little bit differently. There is price and there's market value. It is not the same thing. And does anybody have any idea, since it's called price, what is price? Does anybody know what price is?
Anyone can put a price.
Price is just what it sells for. And so that can be market value or not be market value. And so you want to make sure when pricing, you can pull a price out of the air and stick it on there and say that's the price. But if you don't have any rationale behind it, the market will tell you whether it's right or wrong. We'll just put it that way. So, with me being an appraiser, market value is the most probable price that a property is going to bring in a competitive and open market, under all conditions requisite to a fair sale. And buyer and seller, I'm just reading this, buyer and seller acting prudently, knowledgeably, and assuming the price is not affected by undue stimulus. So we'll go to that. There's a mouse. You guys got to bear with me. Oh, there we go. But you can see that it goes on to say that, we read that it just has to be the fair market value, right? No undue influences, no stress, no distressed sales. Everybody is, and it's made in fair terms as in cash. We're not seeing unruly and unreasonable concessions, because that can influence what that market value is. So when you look and think about that, when you're looking at what properties you're using to comp out as well, because sometimes you'll be researching comps to set your own price, and you're going to see in there, oh, realtor didn't take commission of $50,000, and the price is either higher or lower than what it should be. So it has to be the fair market value. So, and we already went by price. Price is just what it sells for. So, thinking about price and fair market value is a little bit different. So the first thing I do, so when we're just, finding out what we should price this property at, first thing I do is I want you to think like an appraiser. And I think about houses maybe a little bit differently. I've seen tens and tens of thousands of houses that I've done analysis on. It's not a joke. It's just been 35 years. And, yeah, long time. Yeah, I'm young. But the first thing an appraiser does, we get the assignment, and and you do the same thing. You get a lead on a property. The first thing you need to do is you need to become the expert on that property immediately and fast, because that lead might go away. You need to do this like this. You can do it fairly quickly. You should already be an expert in some of your market areas, but if you're not an expert in that market area, there's ways to become an expert quickly. The first thing you do is identify the property. You gather the public records on it. You see who is the owner. You see, any prior listing data. See the last sales transaction data. How long ago did it sell? And you can get those. Get all the details, the square footage, all of that, right? Check the permits, and then without even seeing the property, you can maybe glean this off of prior MLS descriptions. You can list all the improvements that property has, and and all the property characteristics, both the positive and the negative. You got to be really unbiased and look at the house with all of its warts and wrinkles and improvements and updates. You know, it can be wonderful or it can be wonderful, but. And so you're going to do the lot size, square footage, the age, the room count, the parking, the location, and we always say location, location, location. It's a biggie. And then, you know, go with that. So you're going to just identify everything about that property that you can get. And then identify the market area. So a market area, you think it's like the neighborhood. It can be the neighborhood. It can be that one little block of houses right there that's special. And here in Long Beach, we have actually, Long Beach actually will define the neighborhood for you. You know, we have North Long Beach, we have Zachariah, we have Alamitos Heights, we have Belmont Shore, we have, you know, we have them fairly well defined. And if you're not an expert in any neighborhood in Long Beach, you can go onto the city website and become an expert within about 15 minutes because they have history and everything there for you. But when I'm talking about market area, even define the boundaries of it, like where it's located, but it's more than that. Things that are going to be affecting the market value for that area are going to be positives and negatives again. You know, the location, the school districts, the proximity to environmental hazards, or road noise, or airport noise, or, you know, any of that. You got to identify that. And then before I even go and run my comps, I will actually do a quick check on the market trends for the defined market area. And you can pull this by using, are you familiar with Altos reports? Or you can go on RPR and get them. You can get them from Realist or even do a quick skim. You can find those out. And so you can find those out. And I just like to know a general market trend. Whether that is, and that is for the market area. That may not be the market trend that your house is going to follow. So we're just going broad and then we narrow it down. After we find out that, I go ahead and I will start running the comparables. So this takes a little bit of time. You have to become the expert in all these things. You've got to be an expert on the house and the market area and the market trends. And then I start running comparables. Okay, so
can I ask a quick question? I know there's some newbies that, like when you talk about trends, what kind of things?
Oh yeah,
Would help to define trends and understand that?
oh yes. I'm sorry, I'm going
That's
very
okay.
generalized. So
I'll help bring it in.
yeah. You know, if you run the Altos report, they're going to be giving that report will give you market trends. You can even take it back even, but you can go year over year. You know, what homes median or average, depending what they're using, prices would be in that market area that you define. And I think there you can use a map or a zip code. I'm not quite sure there. So you can actually define your market area with a map or a zip code. And then you can have a year over year just trend of all the homes that are sold in the area or condos or what you define it as. And what's nice about that, you can decipher, okay, we're still increasing by, 3% year over year. So values are possibly increasing. The other thing I really look at is, increasing or decreasing. That's just what it's going to be. What I really like to see is list to sales price ratios. That keeps you very current because that is such a on point determination of what the market's doing. Because year over year sales gives you it's historical. By the time those sales are reported, we're 2 months late with the market. Does that make sense to you? And you can also go listing, the number of listings. But right now, it's not a great indicator because we actually don't have enough listings out there to give us a trend. And we can just say, yeah, listings are down. Price is going to be higher because the demand is higher than the number of listings right now. But what I do like to see is the list to sales price ratio. That is a ratio of what realtors put the house on the market as listing price and then what it ultimately sold for. Sometimes it's lower. And sometimes, like right now, if we don't have enough listings, it will be 5% higher possibly. And that determines kind of the heat of the market. So if you're running into a market condition where that listed sales price ratio is 103%, you know, things are selling for 3% higher, or even it's a hot market. And you know that you still need to price at market, but that's how fast it's going to go. And that's also going to another stat that I like besides that listed sales price. The other one I like is the days on market. And that's usually I want to go average days on market, don't go median. You want to go average days on market for that. Median is the middle number and average is all of them added up and divided. I like average better because you might have a wacky one-off in that. And that days on market, if you're below 60 is actually considered a balanced market. Think about that. It is, isn't it? 60 days is about a balanced market. Stable. Anything lower than that, you know, we're still kind of in a seller's market. And here we're creeping up on that. And you know what, don't quote me on that 60. I think it might be lower here in Southern California. But we're creeping up on that right now in some neighborhoods. I just did an analysis for a local neighborhood known as Rossmore, and things are selling at 29 days. They're just selling at 29 days. That's how long it's taking. It's still a seller's market. And so when I see the heat of the market based on the sales to list price ratio and the speed, based on the days on market, that's going to give you a true sense of what's happening now, actually. So you want to see that. And furthermore, when I do run the comps, I focus mainly, I do the solds because that's what any bank, any appraiser is going to look at to determine the collateral of the property for in case of a loan. And actually what buyers are going to look at too. They don't want to overpay. But I'll also look at what is coming soon and what is currently listed. So, and I need to get a clock. I don't even know.
You're in 12:18.
I'm at 12:18. Okay. Yeah, because we need to have time. All right, so we already got that, define market area. And then the market trend report. Is there any other reports you'd like to use? Go ahead. Yeah.
You have it listed there, but I did have a question, and I think I understand what you were saying with the RPR report. And you're looking at a particular, let's say, a zip code, and it says year over year, and then in the column next to it, it talks about what the changes have been in the last month. How do you read that as an appraiser? What kind of a weight do you give to either of those indicators for days on market, for list price, sale price to list price? And
the year over year, I like to be more current with that year over year. And when we use comps, if I ever have to determine as an appraiser, I make time adjustments. Actually, I adjust the prices of my comps based on where they stood in the market at the time of sale. But I like the month over month a little bit better. And they also, that RPR gives you all the squiggly line graphs. So you can say, oh, look at this. You can see it happening. So it is better to go month over if we can do it that way. Yeah. And what else do you use? Brandy, you said you had another one.
I like I'm part TWR, so I use the info products, the market analyzer.
Okay.
It'll
I didn't
tell
put
me
it
the
up there. We should write that down.
You can see the graph.
Yeah.
It'll tell you if it's going up or down and what it's been doing over the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I'm sorry, I didn't put that in there. I have another one that I really like to use. And it's Stephen Thomas. I don't know if you know about Stephen Thomas. He does market reports. And so he's an Orange County guy, but he does all of Southern California. And he's an economist or a statistician. And this is all he does. All he does all day long is analyze the real estate market, and he publishes that. And he's entertaining and fun, but he also gives the market data up to like that month. And just like you were saying, Julie, that it's nice to go more current data. The year over year is great, but I'm going to tell you, last year at this time, we were in a crazy market, and it doesn't make sense to today. And you have to realize that. That's why you have to go as current as you possibly can. But let's just say you identify those market trends. Know where you are. You're a realtor. You're the expert.
Question. So on your quick CMA, are you talking about in PWR, you're running your own comps and printing the quick CMA?
The quick CMA. And so the quick CMA, and I'll address that a little bit later. I do the quick stats and the quick CMA really fast if I just wanted like, boom, let's get this. But with the quick CMA, and I'll address that after you run your comps. I like to do that because then you are doing a micro search of just your market, your competition, and what those comps are showing you of the things that are like for like in your neighborhood. It's kind of a sub-market. You're only comparing apples to apples, and you can say, oh, a house like yours in this location, in this neighborhood, it's going to be 11 days on market. You should list it here, and you're going to sell for 3% over list, and that's it.
The other thing I do is the property profile is probably the very first thing I do.
Yeah, that's illegal. Yeah, like
Yeah,
public
but
records.
sometimes you'll get sales that didn't go through MLS. You get the off markets on the type.
Yeah,
So I think it's
I
good to do.
absolutely do that. I absolutely do that for sure. So that's the next thing we're going to look at is running the comps. And so running the comps, you guys do this, and the one thing they give you when you go to real estate school, they teach you practices and principles and all the laws and all this stuff, and you take a test to get your license. They don't teach you how to use the MLS. Darn. That's a bummer because after you get your license, you learn that you live on the MLS about 4 hours a day, probably. I don't know. You live on that MLS doing your searches, and everybody has their different ways of teaching themselves. Unfortunately, I have not gone to an MLS class. Yeah, I started doing MLS when it was in the books that got published every month.
Back in the day.
Back in the day, and then through the DOS computers and all of that good stuff. So I've just learned as I've gone, and I actually I need to probably go to an MLS class to find out all the tricks. I've learned a few tricks along the way.
He does too. When Reed
Yeah.
comes here, he does really
Yeah,
get into explaining things and showing tips and tricks and
Yeah.
whatnot. But
yeah,
you commented how you spend 4 hours a day, and I'm sure that some people think, why would you be on there 4 hours a day if you don't have any clients? Because you're educating yourself. You're finding the market that you want to focus on. You're going to learn
Yeah.
that market. You're going to just stick with it, and make certain that you are viewing properties.
you're viewing properties. You need to be that expert.
Yeah.
You need to be ready.
Open house is the same thing. People will be
Oh.
like, I don't have any buyers. Go to the open house. Today's open house might be your comp for tomorrow's listing appointment. You just don't know.
Yes, and just like going to the Long Beach broker preview.
On
Run
Thursday
through
night.
those houses, see what they look like. You might meet somebody that needs just that house, and you wouldn't realize that because a house on the MLS is different looking than the house in person. We know this at Real Estate Photos Lie. I have the best photographer, and which makes things, but you need to see all the houses. So, not only do you use all these tools to know what's out there on the market, go out and look at it, be boots on the ground. So when we were running the comps, we got to go back to the basics. This is something you learned about in your real estate book. The principle of substitution. We use this every day, whether you're in the grocery store buying generic butter versus regular price butter, or buying cars. You're just using the principle of substitution. Like, what am I really going to buy this for? What can I get this for? And that just like the upper limit of value tends to be set by the cost of acquiring an equally desirable substitute, assuming that there's no untimely delays, right? That is an appraisal thing. You just like that, if you can get it for that price, you can get it for that price, and that's your comp. So basically, first, and as an appraiser, I saw this many times when realtors are pricing a property and the seller wants the top market price, they'll pull comps from wherever, whether it's a similar market area or not. So first of all, we're going to be comparing like for like. So comps are to be located within the market area. You already defined it. That's where your comps come from. It's better probably to go dated comps in that market area than pull from outside, unless you're an expert in figuring out the differences between a comp from far away and a comp from in your area, because they sell for different. And you can do that. Appraisers do it all the time, but you really have to do that analysis between market area and market area.
Can I have, should I wait until the end to ask you questions?
Ask me questions.
Well, I
will forget. I'm old.
Oh, it's just when you are perhaps pricing a house in an area that hasn't had a lot of movement in it. And you're trying to get like for like, and there's not a whole lot, maybe there's a comp.
Yeah.
Maybe there's two.
Maybe. Yeah.
How do you work with that?
That happens a lot on very specialized houses, specialized houses. It doesn't even have to be high end. It happens a lot on high end houses, if we think about that, right? If you go into a neighborhood and you're like, oh, I have a 10,000 square foot house on Naples Island with a full channel view. What am I going to price this at? And there's only 25 of them to begin with. Actually, probably not. There's probably only 10 of them to begin with, and they haven't sold in 10 years. What do? Yes, special circumstances, you expand out. You go out in distance, maybe to find some of the property characteristics, and like the 10,000 square foot house or the 600 square foot house that's located on 3 acres. You have to do that too. It's just specialized. It doesn't have to be high end. So you can go out in distance, you have to explain it, and then you have to reconcile it, which you have to compare like for like in neighborhoods and show the differences. And there's always differences because real estate is unique, right? But then also you can go back and when you don't have any comps. You want to still be current, but you can go back in time. Like some of these properties that I had to price, heck, I'd go 3 or 4 years back because like you said, there is one sale a year. And so you have to do that. Well, you better be an expert on those market trends and you better see what the trends are doing year over year and be able to follow that to adjust for that in your pricing. Yeah. So you have to adjust whether you have to go out in distance or back in time. Or use things that are much smaller or bigger. You just have to adjust that in your pricing thought. Yeah. Yeah. So market area, like for like, we're not going to compare a 7-bedroom home to a 2-bath home unless you have to, but you're really not doing that. And then when I'm running out my comps, this is what Brandy was asking. I actually, when I find the comps that are like for like, I run the quick CMA again because I want to know what the days on market is for like properties in my market area and the sales to list price ratio and see what those trends look like. And you can even go year over year on just your comps. That's your submarket. You want to be really, and sometimes that submarket does not match what the overall market's doing, depending on what kind of property you have, because your property is unique. The other thing I do when I have my comps, and let me know if you guys have ever done this, when I have my comps that I'm going to be establishing my market CMA off of, if there's a comp that's a little bit different, I'll get on the phone. I call that listing agent on that property, even if it's already sold. I'm like, hey, what happened here? Tell me about this house. And we like to talk, realtors, so they'll tell you about anything. I mean, not really, but they'll tell you, hey, that house really was upgraded, but it was on a busy street and that's why it didn't sell. Or, if you see something a little bit different that's outside the parameters for your market, call and confirm that. Because if you didn't get the chance to walk through it, you need to know.
And I've had mentees that are reluctant to pick up that phone and call the agent and ask the questions. And I said, absolutely not. Pick it up, especially if it's
Yeah.
been, at least 2 to 3 weeks when contingencies could possibly be removed.
Yeah.
That agent is typically going to share because there may be a time when they too need to make that same phone call.
Yes.
So I always encourage them to
Yeah.
pick up the phone and
Yeah.
ask the questions.
And then, what's so funny is Brandy brought it up. I'm like, run comps not only on the MLS, go to the public records. So this is going to be on your realist, or you were saying the property detail, you can push the comps because you want to see what's out there that's sold that may not have shown up on MLS, just off market stuff. And you need to see that and make sure that it's there. And some of the the automatic valuation models that you see on Realist or Zillow uses them, we call them AVMs. They pull not only the MLS sales, but they pull the off-market sales. And sometimes it will skew the data.
In the MLS, if you're in the listing
Yeah, it
or your
has-
comp and you click that tab, you can kind of get an idea of what that is.
it says it, we have an AVM right on the Realist. So if you're in the MLS listing, and to the right over here, it has the MLS listing number, and right underneath of that is the assessor's parcel number, the APN. And if you click on that APN, it is a direct link into the Realist. You can scroll down to that Realist, and at the bottom of there, it shows you the previous listings, the previous sales, all the mortgage data for 10 years, and then an AVM, the automatic valuation. Yeah. And that is just run by, it's just a computer optimized or automatic valuation. Sometimes they're good. Yeah, and I always check them for my subject, by the way. I want to know, I check that automatic valuation and I check Zillow. Do you know why I do that? Because that's what my clients do.
I was gonna say why, to see how inaccurate Zillow is?
No, I want to know what my client is doing. So if your client is out there, your client has, before they even called you to come over, they already said, well, Zillow says this. Why aren't you telling me this number? Well, you better know what that number is because you're going to have to depend your number. And that one was done by a computer, which are brilliant, but they don't distinguish the comparable data as well as you experts do. You're
Is
experts.
Zillow typically overpriced?
No, no. Zillow can be wildly underpriced or wildly overpriced or right on the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotten really good over the past few years. I think. Don't you think? Have you seen it?
I don't go there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't use it.
yeah, it's gotten pretty good. So that's basically, running the comps. After you get the comps going, I don't even know where I'm at.
There you go.
Oh, now, I just took this right off the CMA. Who has run a CMA? You've run a CMA. No, you have to. Do you run CMAs?
I do my own off the quick CM.
You do your own off the
Yeah,
quick
I think
CMA.
26 pages is overkill, and I can't, but.
You know what, Brandy? I'm with you.
I'm kind of old fashioned and I just print the MLS sheets out. Look at the others.
All right, so let's start with the old fashioned model because I'm old fashioned. Raise your hand if you want to be old fashioned today. Once I find those. So you can find your market area, you ran your comps. Hopefully you have sales within the last 3 months. Hopefully. If you don't have sales for the last 6 months, go last 6. If you don't have that, try not to go over it because then you're going to end up in a different market.
See if I can shrink that.
Oh, yeah.
It's covered.
And so just, if you can do that, get as current and similar comps as you want. I like to, I get a handful and you can determine price based on just like 3 or 4. Appraisers do it on 3 or 4 or 5 and then adjust. But I'll grab a handful of sales that are similar, recent. I'll grab whatever listings are out there that are similar because that's my competition. I need to know who my competition is because I'm going to win against my competition. So I print those sheets out. I'll do the analysis and on the side of that paper, I'll write out the property characteristics just on the side of the paper, going down that side. and say, you know, better condition, larger square foot, you know, and I'll just do this because I actually will have to be able to defend every comp I'm considering in my pricing to my client and potentially to an appraiser and also to a buyer. Like, why are you priced so high? You know, this one over here sold for that. I'm like, well, this is why. I know the difference between my house and that house. So I take my time with my comps and get to know them a little bit. Right?
Yeah.
Because you don't, if you look at something, you think, oh, that's perfect, but yet you might be pricing on a comp that you don't know very well, and it might not be the right comp for the house. So that's why you get
I
to know.
mean, even driving the neighborhood.
Oh, I drive my comps, but I'm old school. And if you don't drive the comps, go on the aerial view. You know, you can click on the aerial view right in the MLS. If you click on the map, it takes you to the aerial view and you can see what's around there. What are they looking at? You know, it's a freeway right in their backyard. What's going on? But I just basically took the CMA out. I do my CMA a little bit differently with the comps, and then I'll run the quick CMA to show that, and then I'll do my pricing off of that so that they have at least a little bit of data. I also will do the cloud CMA and then the regular CMA, comparative market analysis on the MLS. There's a lot of extra sheets. My caution to you, if you're a newer realtor, read every sheet on the CMA. Some of them are duplicates. Some of them don't apply to you. And some of them are boilerplate information that just looks like you didn't try very hard jargon to get it out there. But I like the cloud CMA. Do you use the cloud CMA, Deborah? No.
I've used it a few times.
I have used it. I've used the regular CMA. I've used the cloud CMA, both, but I'm very particular about what pages I put in. I generally don't put a pricing recommendation in my CMA. Part of that is because I'm an appraiser. I hold the liability of that license, and if I give you a price, it can be determined just verbally. It can be determined to be an appraiser, and you can appraisal value, and you can hold me to that. But as realtors, you guys don't have that. You know, I have that. As realtors, you can say whatever price you want. Boom. This is that. Yeah.
Do you generally give like a range?
No, I'll give them a price, but I'm not going to have it written down on a piece of paper until it's on a listing contract.
The
Right?
other thing I think is good is if you do the agent hot sheet, the one line, it'll show you all the red arrows up, so you can tell how many have gone over the asking price, and then all the blue arrows down, so it gives you a trend. And I use this type of analysis for buyers and sellers. Why am I writing your offer at this, or why do I suggest you offer over asking because of this? Or
That
why
is
is the list somewhere over here is because of that.
That is a really good point, because all of this data that I'm giving you today is used for both buyers and sellers, right, Brandon? Because when you're working with a buyer, you need to make sure that they're offering competitive. If they want to buy the house, make it a good offer. You know, don't waste anybody's time. And then don't disappoint your buyers by not submitting a competitive offer that's going to be the right price for that property.
Well, and
What
not
was
as
it
much
that you said?
now, not as much now, but before you used to be able to point out very quickly who had their listings overpriced.
Oh,
Now, even if
yes,
it's overpriced, hey, they might still get it. The market's doing
that's
it.
right.
Before, you used to be able to justify, hey, I wanted to write you a full price offer, but I can't because I know for a fact it's not gonna appraise. This is why, and then you give the listing agent data, and then they might accept your offer. Even though it's not.
Yes, yes. Good point, Brandy, because I've done that even when reviewing as me being the listing agent on a property and getting properties or offers that were well over what I thought could be market value. I didn't even respond to that. I said received and thank you very much, but we're not going to be accepting your offer because you're 15% high and you don't have the money to cover the appraisal gap. So you're not going to get accepted. So that's why, as an agent representing the buyers, offering too high is not always the best strategy.
And as a
It-
listing agent, you want to know in your counter offer, like, okay, that's great, you're willing to pay 50 more?
Yeah,
What's your gap? Are you
What's your
covering it?
appraisal
Do you
gap?
have a
Yeah, right.
bank strip of funds to prove you can do
Yeah.
that?
and so that's, and even with the correct pricing on your offers, even if you are going over list price and you're concerned that there may be some sort of appraisal gap, because let's be honest, we don't know what that appraisal is coming in at, because that's an individual with their own opinion about it. And even with me, I don't know if that appraisal is coming in, because we can't influence that appraiser. Although we may want to try, we can't. And that's unfortunate. But if you know your pricing is good and is supported by what the market tells you, well, then you might not have to write that big of an appraisal gap in your contract. An appraisal gap, do you know what an appraisal gap is? If you write a contract where you offer the purchase price, let's say of $750,000, and then that property only sells for $725,000. In a standard contract, you can go back as a buyer and negotiate that pricing. But in this competitive market, we've come, and actually with the new form this year, there is actually a line on the form that says, we're going to buy this property for $750,000. But in all cases, we'll buy it even if it only appraises at $730,000 and above, cover that, or, up to this amount. So you want to make sure that that number, you justify that number, because potentially it could cost your client $20,000. You want to make sure you know what your numbers are. And you're the expert. They're not the expert. It's their money, but you're the expert. So you have to protect it. And, when you complete the CMA, we can go through that if you like. I like, even if I'm using the cloud CMA or the quick CMA, it's hard to determine, especially on the cloud CMA, what comps they're using. And you might want to add some more comps in there, or you might want to exclude that. So make sure when you go through the cloud CMA, especially, pulls up automatic. It's fantastic artificial intelligence. It pulls up the right comps almost right there. Yeah, almost. But you go in there and you click the ones you want. Because if you have a 1,500 square foot house, it might give you a 2,400 square foot house in the same neighborhood across the street. You got to take that one off because it's not the same animal, not the same buyer. And
What type of range do you use when you're looking at square footage? Like typically I would go a couple hundred either side. Is that
15 to 20%.
there you go. Appraisers, we like it within 10%, but that's too small. So anything over 20% can be a comp that is 20% over or under the square footage of the house that you're appraised or doing the price on. 20% is going to be out of range. But it might be the best comp. So you might still use it, So it can be, you can go a little bit higher, a little bit lower. And especially if there's not very many comps in the neighborhood. And that's what we're finding right now because our number of sales has shrunk over the past years. Yeah. So as far as guidelines, they like to see 20% on square footage. They'd like to see bedroom counts relatively similar. One bedroom should probably only ever be considered compared to one bedrooms. Two bedrooms, really two bedrooms, sometimes three bedrooms if it's a two bedroom plus a functional extra spaces den or something like that, but you have to adjust for that. And 3 and 4 bedrooms, they're somewhat similar, except for many people in the past 5 years or since pandemic, if they had a 3-bedroom home, they really needed a 4-bedroom home because they had a home office. And so that 4th bedroom's become a little bit more important. And the larger homes with 5, 6, and 7 bedrooms, they're more specialized. Typically, Southern California families can get away with, even with a ton of people, can get away with 4 bedrooms. There's not that much pricing difference between the 4s and up. And it has to do with square footage a little bit. Because even if you have 6 or 7 bedrooms, you're not using them all as bedrooms. Well, and unless you have like that many children, I guess. So bedroom count, square footage, lot size. Yeah, you want to compare like for like, because especially here where the typical lot size and Long Beach is, or Huntington Beach or whatever, is about 6,000 square feet. You know, Rossmore is 7,700, Los Al's 8,000, you know, Lakewood is like
Those are
6,000,
standard lots.
like just regular standard. But if you get a 10 or 15,000 square foot lot, yeah, you better go like for like, because they're buying that house for that lot, right? And age, within about 10 years, depending. But what I will say is, if you know your homes that are built in the 20s and 30s look like this. The 40s look, the post-war 40s look like this. And then, you know, 50s on up, there's a look for every house. So again, try to go like for like. If you're doing a 60s, 70s, you know, contemporary home that looks like the Brady Bunch, yeah, stay with that. You know,
And if it is the Brady Bunch,
yeah,
it's gonna raise that price.
it's gonna raise that price.
It did.
Yeah,
What was that? A couple years ago it sold. Somebody bought.
I
it.
know. Yeah.
What it was so funny.
Yeah. All right, so we can do a comparative market analysis. Let me see where I'm at though. Where's this mouse?
There you go.
Okay, well, all right, so we already did this. After I get the comps, after I do my CMA, because I told you I didn't put my price on the CMA, because I like to keep it secret. I like it to be mine until I know they're gonna be my client. And I'll give them that price when I'm in the listing presentation, but do I really need to email it over and have them use it as ammunition against other guys coming into the listing presentation? Do I want that? My main expertise, because I'm, like I said, a fresh agent, is my market expertise, my price. So I'm not going to give it away for free. I mean, I will eventually, but you know, other agents are very flashy with all this that they provide, you know, the staging, the photography. We all do that. And that's their flash. This is my flash, the pricing. So that's why I kind of keep it with me. But after I do that CMA, I go over again. I sit down, I digest. I'm like, all right, really, buyer sellers, what kind of market is this? I look at it again based on my comps. I really look at the average down of my comps. So I can say, hey, your house should be listed at 750. I'm going to take 19 days to sell the property. And then after 19 days, you're going to be in escrow for 30 days. You're going to be out of your house on, you know, July 1st. Where are you going to go? Or how can I help you with the next deal? You know, you can get them on the timing. And then I can also tell them, all right, we're going to list it for 750. It's going to sell for 765. What are you going to do with the extra money? And that sort of thing. But the reason I like to list at market, and we're going to look at that. All right, so I want to know those things, and I really want to know them. I want to know them like I don't want to have to look at it. I want to just be able to know that because I'm the expert. Because when they're asking, you want to be able to pluck it out of the top of your head and answer them like you're the expert in the area. But I reconcile the comps. I really look at the current listings because that's my direct competition. I'm not going to overprice my house because, you know, every listing has gone down based on sold comps over the past 2 months. You're asking month over month. That's why we need to look at the current listings, be relevant, be today. And then before I actually give a recommendation pricing, I really look at the seller's needs. What do they tell you? You know, we have to ask a lot of questions when we're talking to our sellers. What do they really tell you? Like, yeah, maybe I don't need to sell the house. Maybe I do. But, you know, my daughter's having that baby and I really want to be in Tennessee before the baby comes, you know, or something like that. You know, you want to really listen to them and ask all those questions.
And then you use that motivation later.
Yes, because when they have to make a decision on the price, you're like, yeah, but you said you had to be in Tennessee by July 1st. If you don't price it like this and don't let me sell this, it's not going to happen for you. How badly do you want to see your daughter and have your baby? Right? Yeah. Yeah. And then there's other types of distress. And, you know, it's like, you know, I'm getting divorced. I have to have this gone. I can't stand to be in the house with my spouse any longer on either side, right? Or I had this very recently where the seller says, I'm not lifting a finger. My house is perfect. I'm not going to do anything. It's going to go as is. Well, as is even as is in good condition. It's a little bit different than good condition upgraded, and that seller is motivated and might work with you on some things, you know, but them saying, I'm not gonna fix a darn thing. The roof needs replaced in 2 years. That's not happening. So you have to look at their motivation there and put that in your price. Because if you don't, you're really not serving your client well. And you can say, hey, if you want to go as is, we're going to put it at this price. If you fix it or are a little bit generous on maybe terms or offer some financing concessions, we can list here. But, and then further going on about listing at market. This is, I can't even read that. Can you guys read that? All right, so basically the fair market value attracts the buyers. Overpricing it never really serves you. If you can look at this, if you want to, you want to be at market, that attracts about 60%. You want the largest pool of buyers. You want to be that honey and attract as many bees to your property as you can. So you want to be at market value, maybe even a little less, to get as many buyers to that property, creating that buzz. We just had, who was it that just had the listing in Cerritos that had 9 offers in 2 days? That was Leslie. Was that yours?
No,
Yeah.
I heard it was packed.
Yeah, it was packed. And you know why? It's because Leslie was an expert. She priced it beautifully. She did the right thing. And so, and that statistic, if you think about this, your job is to find buyers for your sellers. If you are pricing it 10% over market, you're not going to get any, it's going to be crickets at your open house. It's going to sit there on the market. It's going to get shop worn. And then ultimately sell most likely for under the market value that you originally set at your listing presentation. So it's your job to be the expert. So the other thing is, if you listed too high, you'll know in a week. In this market, you're going to know in a week. It says 2 weeks, but you're going to know in a week. So if you have a seller that is determined to price at a certain level, you say, that's too high and it's going to hurt you. And if you want me to have the listing, I work for you and I'll do what you say. But let's agree today that if we don't get 10 showings by next week, you're going to have to lower that out there, or you're not going to be able to sell this property because you have to go to Tennessee to see your daughter and the grandbaby, right? And then lastly, the last thing is that shows when you hit the market, you want to put your best foot forward. That means you want to be at market value for, incentive pricing. And you're going to get your best offers in the first 2 weeks. If that doesn't happen, if you go longer than 2 weeks, especially right now in most market areas in our area, you're probably overpriced, or you might have a specialized property. Let's get back to that. That's why here it just says 2 weeks. And I agree with this, even with specialized properties. If you have a specialized property that's listed at 3.5 mil, which shrinks your buyer pool down because not everybody has $3.5 million in their back pocket to pay out a house or has the income to support that kind of mortgage, you're going to have a shrink buyer pool. But if you don't have any activity in the first 2 weeks, even on a specialized property, you have to think. But relax, because I've done it to myself. I worried. I did the analysis on a condo a few years ago during COVID. And I determined, it's going to sell at this price point and it will take 21 days. I knew that because I ran the comps. I ran the specialized market trends for that condo. And I'm like, that's gonna sell at 1.2 in 21 days. Guess who was getting nervous around day 17? Me. It was me. And I'm like, oh gosh, I didn't have enough showings and we couldn't have open houses. And so it was a little more difficult. And I still knew 21 days. Guess what? I got my offer on day 20.
Wow.
And I got 2 offers by day 22. And so it just takes that long. Then the numbers, they don't lie to you. And although all real estate is unique, you can like really look at that. Yeah, and you guys have questions for me? This is stuff that you do every day. And you just have to remind yourself, go up market value. And don't overprice. Yeah, but if you have questions for me or anybody out there about, I don't know, the market or even appraisal questions, I'll answer
That
them.
looks like there's one in chat.
I don't know how to do that, guys.
Click over on the chat box.
How to
Oh,
price
I
your
think
list in
that-
PDF.
That's your link. Oh, is it the PDF?
I don't know. Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe the PDF.
Sam put it in there for you.
Yeah, probably. Thanks,
So-
Kim.
I put your PDF in the chat. And then we can also, oh, you have handouts there, right?
Yeah, there's handouts here.
Oh,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. And that's basically it, but I'll answer questions, like weird appraisal questions if you want to know. I'm gonna tell you weird stories. Go for it.
I think when looking at, an area that has a variety of homes that they have sold in the last 3 to 6 months. And I think it's difficult sometimes when trying to find that 10 to 20% ratio. And so trying to give some value or decrease and the adjustments. That's what I'm trying
Oh,
to
the
say.
adjustment.
The adjustment.
Yeah.
How do you determine that? And is there like a table that you use that says?
Yeah,
you know,
a
has an
table would
extra
be
bedroom,
nice,
has
right?
an extra bath? Oh, and then I have a second question, which is, and this came up a lot, where the house was a 4-bedroom, but legally, according to the tax rules, it was only a 2-bedroom.
Oh,
How do you value that?
okay. That question's easier than the first one.
Okay,
The 4-bedroom, 2-bedroom, bedrooms, legally a bedroom has to have a door, 4 walls and a window. And that's a bedroom.
And a
So-
closet.
What?
And a closet.
Oh, and a
Right?
closet.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's the most important part. The
Yeah.
closet. So determine if it's really a bedroom. And is it a bedroom that is a tandem bedroom where they added a bedroom on the other side of the bedroom? You have to walk through a bedroom to get to the bedroom. Yeah, those aren't good. But honestly, when it comes to value, you're gonna price this property what is where is as it stands today. Because legally they're saying 2 bedrooms. The only thing that happens, and there's some neighborhoods in Orange County, gosh, is there some in LA? Not that I've seen recently. Below grade bedrooms don't count. So here in California, we don't really have a whole lot of basements, but we have some below grade builds where you have there's actually some in Long Beach, so yeah, LA. Where you go in the front door and you go downstairs, and then the windows are up here above your roof line or above your sight line. You're actually technically in a basement. Basements don't count as square footage or as bedrooms. You can't even crawl out that window, because that's not, you can't get the egress out of it. And there's some in the city of Orange, some in the city of Santa Ana, that it's just a builder. They're wonderful homes, by the way, and I would count them marketing as a bedroom, technically not a bedroom. Yeah.
so when you're pricing it, let's say you have a buyer.
Yeah.
They like a house. It says 4, it says marketing is 4, but legally, they have permitted as a 2-bedroom.
To cover yourself as an agent, because you don't want to get sued, I'd make sure whatever room I'm counting on my description was a bedroom. So physically, but I don't care if it's permitted or on the tax rolls is something else. I'd go with that. I'd also put the disclaimer on the MLS description that, you know, fire needs to research your own, you know, all do their due diligence. But then I also would disclaim that for tax rolls listed as 2-bedroom, physically a 4-bedroom.
So would you?
And I'd make the adjustments based on the 4-bedroom. Whatever,
you would- okay,
whatever it
not the
functions
square
as.
footage.
Not,
Not
no,
necessarily
square
the-
footage.
you're
We
gonna
do,
look-
we do both.
You're gonna look at the square footage.
Yeah.
And then you would also look at 4 bedrooms versus this.
Yeah.
4-bedroom that's really, you know,
Yeah.
not listed as a 4-bedroom.
My
But physically
appraiser
does.
hat, yeah, my appraiser hat, I start doing my adjustments on date of sale, because I'm gonna adjust that market conditions right away, bam. Then I'm gonna go to lot size, bam, and adjust that, go to view, because there's view sometimes, or location obsolescence, or positives, you know, you can be positive. Obsolescence is like traffic, airport noise, all of that. And then go down to age, adjust for that, adjust for condition. Condition is everything, right? But then we adjust for the bedroom and bath count on the square footage. And then going down from there, you have the adjustments for parking, utility, and amenities. You know, because you have to adjust for the pool, swimming pool in the backyard. Doesn't make a difference or not, right? But I'm gonna tell you, now that I told you that level that we adjust, we start with date of sale. And really the next adjustment is location. And you know, in real estate, we always say it's all location, location, location. It is location, location, location. But what really makes a difference is timing, timing, timing. Because you can make a lot of money or lose a lot of money based on that. That's why we adjust for it first. And that's why it's most important that you know your market trends. Yeah. And we have all those resources. So it's easy, right? As far as adjustments for square footage, is that what you asked?
Basically, I mean, yeah. it would
There's
be-
not a chart.
Well, and amenities. You know,
There's not a chart.
okay.
Yeah.
What's a story you have about a seller who lost like, a lot of money? Even one price?
You know, I'm still, like I said, I'm crushed. Brandy's a little bit, Brandy, you have more sales. than me. Yeah.
I don't know, I'm a great agent and I price it.
Yeah,
And I get them the most. house.
I'm gonna
I've
tell you,
never
I
done
know this because I know there's, I know a few agents that are notoriously high. Notoriously high.
That always push.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna start gossip. I just.
But they're not in this office.
I just- I
And, but
just wanna
they're,
know
I know
stories.
some agents in Los Alamitos, they work all over Orange County. And they will put their houses, they'll tell you, I'll sell your house for $2 million to get the listing. Well, then it takes them 6 months to sell the listing. And
They didn't sell it.
and
for
they
2
didn't
million.
sell it. It is ultimately the fault of the agent.
And they're the ones who
You
leave
can
the
blame the hard-headed sellers, sure, but it's really your responsibility to be their best advocate. And if you're losing them money, that's on you. That's what I don't. You know, we just have to.
Tony, what was the original question? We couldn't hear.
Oh, the original question, he wanted to know if there was a story and my experience of any seller that ultimately lost money from pricing too high.
Okay.
And I don't have
Or
that
too
story
low.
myself.
Too low.
And too low,
I mean, like with too low in this market, it drives the price, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
too low, you would just have to be patient to weed through all the offers, I think.
Yeah.
And then maybe adjust. I have seen that a few times actually where things were priced lower and then went higher. And where they actually changed the list price because they got too many offers in 2 days. It's like, oh, we thought 750, but oh, I'm sorry, we really meant 825. You know, so we've
I have a
seen it.
question on roof condition. So obviously, when you have FHA appraisal versus a conventional appraisal, you have wood rotted eaves everywhere and the roof needs a tear off. About what would that, how would that affect financially that appraisal? Is it 20 grand? Like, hey, I know this is
Oh, gosh, the appraiser's gonna appraise that where is as it stands, without bias. So that goes into the condition.
Right.
As far as your deal goes, if it's an FHA appraisal and that roof is considered at end of life, and that appraiser's gonna require a roof search.
Right.
It might cost you the amount of a new roof, because they actually won't fund that loan until the roof is satisfactory.
Right, and that depends on the banks.
That FHA.
So I guess if you had two properties and one was a C2 and one was a C4, what would those dollar amounts look like? Is that even a thing? Like,
It,
you have
it
like-
totally depends, because, all right, C1 is technically a brand new house. C2 is like a brand new house, but just really nice, and not that old, but like a brand new house, could almost compete with new construction. C3 is good condition house, maybe even upgrade, maybe wonderful. C4 is, think of average condition,
Okay,
just
so this would be
average. It can
C5.
just be average and typical for the neighborhood and its age and the whole bit. Maybe not too many upgrades, livable, completely livable.
And C5 is like they have serious issues like foundation or roof.
C5 is fair. And fair doesn't mean like My Fair Lady. Fair means below average. It just, what is the C stand for? Condition rating. It's on the appraisals, if you've seen an appraisal.
Because for us agents.
And then
we're trying to-
C5 is poor, and you can't get a loan on a poor house. You can get a loan on a fair. C5 is poor. Yeah, you can't get a loan. That would be uninhabitable. Whereas either it doesn't have a roof, it doesn't have a heating system, it doesn't have flooring, it doesn't have functioning, basically, I think you need heat and flooring and windows and a roof, and you need to have a house.
And plumbing.
Yeah, and plumbing, yeah, you need
I've seen the
toilets.
one that costs us $1.
Yeah, and you need plumbing, yeah. And for FHA, it goes further. And for FHA, you actually need a functionally livable home that is not going to generate any health and safety hazards. And health and safety hazards can be a roof hazard, can be extensive wood rot or and possibly an infestation. Bugs, well, all kinds of bugs, termites and bugs or rats or whatever. It can be a leaning fence. It can be chipping and peeling paint.
We just painted the fence.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, be aware of that. You can go onto the HUD website for FHA condition issues, because the appraiser that goes out there, they're the eyes and ears of the bank. And they're going to be the ones that just determine, and they're not the good guy or the bad guy. They just report what they see. And unfortunately, they're going to report what they see, whether you beg them not to, because it's their license on the line. You can beg all you want, but you can't influence them, and they need to report that correctly to the bank, because they'll lose their license. The other problem you need to know about with FHA appraisals, they stick with the property for 6 months. So if you get a low FHA appraisal and you can't go through with the deal, the next buyer that comes in gets to use that same FHA appraisal. Yeah. So be careful with, not even be careful, just know that happens, because that can be shocking. You can go get another conventional loan on the house, no problem. It's only FHA. But remember, the appraiser themselves, they're the eyes and ears of the bank. You can't influence them. I make sure I show up early. I make it like an open house. I turn on all the lights, make it show as nice as I can. I do hand them a package and say, here's some comps in case you need them. Use them, don't use them. I try not to influence them.
And this is you, the agent.
Me, the
talking right
agent,
now.
me, the appraiser, I have that already in my back pocket. But make sure that before the appraiser comes, that you have your water heater double strapped. You have the smoke detectors and the carbon monoxide detector. And if you have security bars on your window, make sure the appraiser, you can have the emergency exits. That is a lot in Long Beach. Already installed, or just take the darn bars off before the appraiser shows up, because the appraiser is going to come back and inspect that. What else?
And there's additional fees if the appraiser has to come back. Is
If
that
the
correct?
appraiser has to come back, it will cost the buyer who's getting the loan. I'm thinking another $150. And the appraiser will have to come in just to walk in the house to take a picture of the smoke detector and walk out. So it's a 5-minute appointment, but it will cost that borrower or that buyer $150. So, be kind. Make sure it's all okay, right?
Ready.
Yeah, make sure it's ready. Any other questions?
Good
I think
stuff,
we went
Joanie.
over. We went over.
We did, it's okay. All
Yeah.
right, good stuff. Thank you.
Any questions there? Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Hi, guys.
I have a question.
Oh, now you ask.
About